Real Madrid just sold a 22-year-old striker for around £34 million. And the crazy part is, just over a year earlier, Gonzalo García was barely known outside Madrid. Then, everything changed. He became Real Madrid's breakout striker at the 2025 Club World Cup. He scored 4 goals in 6 matches, won the tournament's Golden Boot, and suddenly looked like the kind of academy forward Madrid had been searching for years. Now he is gone. Fulham have signed him on a 5-year contract, taking him away from the Santiago Bernabeu and into the Premier League. And for a club that has spent years trying to develop its own next great number 9, this is more complicated than simply selling a young player for a big fee. Because Gonzalo García wasn't just another Castilla prospect. He was a Spanish striker who had already scored 25 goals for Castilla in Primera Federación. He had already impressed Carlo Ancelotti. He had already impressed Xabi Alonso. And when Mbappé was unavailable at the Club World Cup, Gonzalo didn't look like a kid filling in. He looked ready. So why did Real Madrid let him go? And what happens if the player they sold for £34 million becomes exactly what Madrid needed? This is the story of why Real Madrid sold Gonzalo García for £34 million, and why they may regret it. On August 3, 2026, the news became official. Fulham had signed Gonzalo García from Real Madrid. The Spanish striker had signed a 5-year contract and was heading to the Premier League to reunite with Álvaro Arbeloa, the former Madrid coach who had already worked with him inside the club. The reported fee? Around £34 million. For most clubs, that's enormous money for a 22-year-old who had only recently broken into senior football. For Real Madrid, though, the decision tells a different story. Madrid are not selling because Gonzalo has failed. They're selling because the first-team squad is already packed with attacking talent. Kylian Mbappé is the superstar. Vinicius Jr. remains one of the most dangerous forwards in world football. Rodrigo has been competing for his place. Endrick is still viewed as a major long-term project, and Madrid have continued reshaping the squad under Jose Mourinho. So Gonzalo was facing the hardest problem in football. Not becoming good enough for Real Madrid, becoming important enough to play every week for Real Madrid, and that distinction may be the entire reason this transfer happened. But to understand why this could become a mistake, you have to understand how quickly Gonzalo García rose. He joined Real Madrid's academy in 2014, when he was only 10 years old. For a decade, he climbed through the club's youth system, and eventually, the goals started arriving. In the 2024-25 season, Gonzalo scored 25 goals for Castilla. That wasn't just a good number. Real Madrid described him as the top scorer in Primera Federación, while also noting that his tally equaled Castilla's best regular season scoring record of the 21st century. Then came the opportunity every academy player dreams about, the first team. He had already made his senior debut in November 2023 against Cádiz, but his real breakthrough came later. At the 2025 Club World Cup, Kylian Mbappé was unavailable at the beginning of the tournament because of illness. Gonzalo stepped in, and instead of looking overwhelmed, he started scoring. Against Al Hilal, he scored Real Madrid's only goal in a 1-1 draw. Then came more goals. By the end of the tournament, he had scored 4 times and provided an assist in 6 matches. FIFA awarded him the tournament's Golden Boot. Suddenly, the conversation around Gonzalo changed. He wasn't just Castilla's striker anymore. People were asking whether Real Madrid had discovered their next homegrown number 9. And that's where this story becomes dangerous, because once a player shows you he can perform for Real Madrid, selling him becomes a very different decision. There was one thing that stood out about Gonzalo. He didn't need enormous amounts of space. He didn't need 10 chances. He had movement. He attacked the box. He found dangerous positions, and most importantly, he had the instincts of a natural striker. FIFA described him as a lethal forward with mobility and a frightening finishing ability. That matters at Real Madrid. Because Madrid can buy almost anything: speed, dribbling, power, experience. But a natural goal scorer who understands where the ball is going before everyone else, those players are much harder to manufacture. Look at Madrid's history. Raúl, a homegrown striker who became one of the defining players in the club's history. Karim Benzema, a striker who eventually became the centerpiece of Madrid's attack. Cristiano Ronaldo, not a traditional number 9, but eventually one of the greatest goal scorers the club had ever seen. Real Madrid knows what happens when the right attacker develops at the Bernabeu, and Gonzalo had already taken his first steps, so why sell him? Because potential is not enough. At Madrid, you need minutes. And minutes were becoming extremely difficult to find. This is where the transfer starts making sense. Real Madrid didn't necessarily believe Gonzalo wasn't good enough. They may simply have believed that Fulham could give him something Madrid couldn't: regular football, a starting role, a manager who already knew him, and time. Álvaro Arbeloa left Madrid and became Fulham's manager in July 2026. Then he brought Gonzalo with him. That relationship could be crucial. Arbeloa already knew the player. He knew his development. He knew his strengths. And now he has the opportunity to build Gonzalo into a Premier League striker. Reuters reported that Gonzalo joined Fulham after making 51 appearances for Real Madrid and scoring 13 goals. Those aren't superstar numbers, but that's exactly the point. He hasn't reached his ceiling. He's 22. He's entering the Premier League at an age where a striker can explode, and Fulham aren't buying the finished version of Gonzalo García. They're buying the possibility that he becomes much more. And this is where Madrid could eventually regret the decision. Imagine Gonzalo scores 15 goals in his first Premier League season, then 20, then 25. Imagine Spain eventually calls him up. Imagine he becomes Fulham's main striker and starts attracting interest from Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea, or another European giant. Suddenly, £34 million doesn't look expensive, it looks like a bargain. That's the risk Madrid has accepted, because when you sell an established player, you know roughly what you're losing. When you sell a prospect, you don't. You're selling a version of the player that exists today, but you're also gambling against the version of the player that could exist 3 years from now.